I would like to introduce you to our speakers. Ben Flaming brings AVP Sales Retail Vertical, and Chris Lytle, Global Partner Lead at Google Shopping. Thank you both for joining us today. And without further ado, we'll turn the time over to you. Please take it away.
As mentioned, I'm Chris Lytle, and I manage our local shopping partnership business at Google. And it's a very exciting time to be doing that, and excited to speak with you all today.
And I'm Ben Flaming, AVP of Retail at Bringg, based in Austin, Texas. And we're working with a lot of retailers and restaurants, and this COVID situation has really kind of provided a wave, and we've seen a lot of changes recently. So looking forward to chatting with Chris about it.
Dynamite. All right, well, I think jumping into our first slide, we're going to rely in the first half of this presentation on a great tool that we provide at Google called Google Trends. If you all aren't familiar with it, it basically lets you do searches for the popularity of any search term you can think of by region, globally, what are some breakout terms. It's just a fantastic tool for getting a handle on what people are thinking about. And what's particularly exciting about looking at Google Trends in the context of shopping search is that we're really capturing people in the research process, right? They're not on, on a e-com site yet. They are, they're at Google, and they're looking for opportunities and new options, right? And I think that's one thing that we see in crisis is that folks are looking for better options. And one of the better options that we've certainly seen a lot of interest in is around curbside and click and collect. Curbside was a tool, a term, and click and collect as well, were terms that, in late 2019 were only known by fulfillment and retail nerds like Ben and myself. Now, I think we all have parents and grandparents that are now familiar with what curbside pickup is, how BOPUS works, and what an incredibly important tool it's been during COVID. And when we dig into the next slide here, we start looking even deeper, right? So obviously, curbside and click and collect are newer, kind of wonky terms. But when we start looking a little bit further into terms that people are more familiar with on a day-to-day basis, things like pickup and open near me, you can really see how much things have changed in a relatively short time period. Particularly in what we see a lot of the local shopping being driven not only by the desire for alternative fulfillment options, right? Like, where can I go get this item, know that it's there, have it put into the back of my car so I'm not spending a lot of time in the store, right? So that entire shopping process, it isn't just about who's got what I need at the best price. It's who's got what I need close to me, who can fulfill it in the way that's going to be the safest for me and my family.
Yeah, and I think that this is something that we've definitely seen the acceleration of, the reliance on local. It's something that retailers, I've been in this business for 6-7 years, and retailers have been talking about, the reliance on, or the advantage that they have with having these large localized retail footprints, and how they can really use those to compete online. Not a lot has been done with that, but I think that this is really accelerating the demand for that local online experience. And so there's definitely an appetite for brands to start moving even faster in that direction. So we're feeling that here as well.
Yeah, and then when the next layer of it all obviously is delivery, and how important delivery has become to so many people over the past several months. Not only because, for many restaurants, that was the only way they were allowed to function was with delivery and curbside and all those good things. But also, for shoppers who didn't want to go into a store. So for grocery, delivery had been an interesting growth area for grocery heading up until COVID, but it's an area that's truly exploded. And one thing that we always think about in terms of coronavirus is that while it isn't a crisis that's passing as quickly as we'd all like, it is going to, pass at some point. So we're really focused on not necessarily what's going on right now, but what are the trends that are accelerating that are going to stick around after the crisis has passed, right? So we think that a lot of the recent coronavirus crisis has led shoppers to look for better options, whether they be places to find items locally or new fulfillment mechanisms. And we think a lot of those folks that have adopted those are going to stick with those even after the crisis has passed. And then, kind of stepping back and pulling the lens back maybe a little bit longer than just the past 12 months, there really has been this broader trend overall of, folks looking very intentionally for items that they can buy near them. And we, excuse me, we particularly see this behavior on mobile. When folks are sitting at their laptop at home or on their, their desktop at home, they're more inclined to be doing some research, maybe looking at various places they might be able to buy some things. On the other hand, when they're on the mobile device, they're much more focused on a transaction. And to that point, we've really seen this explosion of "can I buy and near me" searches. And what's really interesting, you see the general blips, the general rises have been around the holiday time, right? Around the annual Christmas buying season. And interestingly, usually that last week leading up to Christmas, where late buyers like myself might have waited too long to get mail delivery. So, we've seen this big spike in "can I buy near me" during the holiday period. But now when you look to the far right, how much that's really boomed just because of the coronavirus crisis. And so we can really expect to see some really tremendous growth in "can I buy near me" for the holiday season coming up.
Yeah, and Chris, this is a really interesting graph. We talked a little bit yesterday when we were prepping this, just about what Bringg is experiencing, and we've for a year now we've been talking about this coming wave, right, of the need to fulfill locally, and we've felt this wave, and I've seen it coming for 5 or 6 years that I've been with Bringg, but in the last few months, this wave that we've expected to come over the next few years, that has been slowly coming over the past few years, is all of a sudden just kind of hit, and it's been a real interesting time where we've seen a lot of retailers who we never would have believed would have been interested in curbside or deliver from store, are now making moves to do so. It's a pretty incredible time. So next off here, Chris, we have immediate implications. So, I have in my notes here, one of the obviously the implications of COVID and shutdowns and restrictions and people not willing to go to stores or restaurants. Obviously, there's impact on revenue. It's been widely written about. One of the interesting things that we've seen, especially in the grocery retail space, is their revenue is they're actually going bang. People are buying groceries like never before, but the mode is different, right? Grocers have been for years kind of slowly coming online. Some of them are relying on Instacart, starting to do some curbside, but really there's been a lot of operational stress, right? Where these kind of, I don't want to say hacked together, but these kind of early nascent operations for curbside and delivery, which had sufficed up until now because delivery and curbside wasn't that much of their business, are now really starting to kind of creak and break underneath the weight of the volume that they're getting. I don't know if you're seeing any other kind of unexpected implications of all this.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ben, I think you hit on a key point where a lot of the systems that were put in place for curbside or click and collect for a lot of folks were kind of early adopter kind of projects. Obviously, you have folks like Walmart and Target that have really done an amazing job and are really ahead of the curve. But a lot of the efforts that have been put together have been kind of early stage kludgy tie downs, which is fine if you're expecting a low volume. But if the volume really starts increasing, it's not only that it becomes not a great customer experience, but the challenge is that a lot of those transactions are not profitable. So the operational cost of fulfilling a curbside order or a click and collect order can often be more than a shopper coming right into the store and picking the stuff off the shelves by themselves, right? When you think about it, if you're the grocer, you're paying someone to put the stuff on the shelves, and then you're paying someone to take the stuff off the shelves, right? Either you're doing it yourself or you're partnering with someone who's taking a cut of the proceeds to do that. So there's a real need now that consumers are expecting curbside in large quantity, and they are expecting click and collect in quantity. We really need to be able to do this at scale, not only so we can satisfy customer demand, but that we can really start bending the cost curve and making a curbside transaction as profitable as a customer walking into the store and picking the items themselves.
Yeah, it's a good point about margin as well. I mean, you mentioned reliance on third parties. We've seen that some in the grocery space, reliance on marketplaces, but really big time in the restaurant space, where there's been a heavy reliance by the industry en masse on third party aggregators to kind of handle their off premise. And when it's 5, 10, 15% of your revenue, not a big deal that you're giving up so much margin. When it starts to be 30, 40, 50, 60% of your revenue, it's a big problem. And you really need to start to think about how you're going to re-strategize and retool to do some of this on your own in a profitable way. So any other thoughts on that, Chris, or do you want to start moving into kind of some ideas on discoverability? And
yeah, once I want discoverability in one second, but I just want to kind of follow up on the marketplace thing about as far as trends that are accelerating. We certainly saw a lot of folks that had started out in grocery with the marketplaces because they were viewed as kind of like the easy on button, right? I can go ahead and stand up my e-com, I can stand up my curbside, I can go ahead and stand up my delivery, all that good stuff. And I know that a lot of grocers were in the process of kind of building their own version of that so that they could retain more control over that. So one thing I've definitely seen from a lot of our grocer partners is that those efforts have really accelerated as far as trying to make certain that that they can be self-sustaining as an e-com and delivery platform.
Yeah, I think we saw some last thought, and then we'll move on. I mean, one of the kind of the early days as the volume started to increase for delivery, we saw some of the marketplaces, with drivers going on strike, and the discussions I was having with grocery executives was, what happens if these marketplaces that they're relying on go out of business? Their values don't align with their values. There's a lot of new issues that start to come up when you're at scale. So let's move on and talk about discoverability a little bit. And how you can,
one of my favorite subjects.
I know.
So one of the things that we need to remember, particularly with retail, is we spend the time and money to find the perfect store site. We get the great staff that's there. But it's all for naught if we don't let folks know what we have in the store, right? So one thing that we spent a lot of time at Google on over the past couple of years is making it easier for merchants to let us know what's in their store so that we can in turn let shoppers know what's in those stores. So that when they start their shopping journey, they can go to Google. They can find great retailers near them that have products they're looking for and the alternative fulfillment mechanisms that they need, like curbside, like buy online, pick up in store, and all those good things. So what we do is we've got a couple different ways that we make it easy for merchants to provide us that data, but basically it's a simple feed where you tell us your store location, the SKUs that you've got in those stores, and the prices that you have. And then we start surfacing those in a number of ways. And Ben, if you pop to the next slide here, there we go. The first place where it surfaces on the left here is within Google search results. So if I do a search for Yeti cooler near me, because it's my brother's birthday and I forgot to get him something and I need something now. I do that search for Yeti cooler near me, and then at the very top, there are local inventory ads that come up, right? And you can see there they have things like curbside pickup denoted. We let people know that it's available in close proximity to them, that the item that they're looking for is the item that is being carried. And we also let them know what alternative fulfillment mechanism there might be in the way of curbside pickup. The user clicks on that and they bounce right over to the retailer's site and they complete the transaction there. The next place where the inventory data can show up is in on Google searches. You know, when you do a search at the very top of the page, we will have that little maps pack that will show the Google Maps area, the areas where something might be located, and then a number of locations beneath that. And then you can see the very first one, it says check in stock products from Yeti. And I know it's a little bit small there, but in essence, what we're doing is we're letting customers know that Dick's Sporting Goods has let us know that they are carrying that Yeti cooler and that is currently in stock. And that notation is free. We don't charge anything for that. The next place it shows up is actually within Google My Business. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Google My Business as a business term, you're probably familiar with it as a shopper or a consumer. That's what when you click on that Dick's Sporting Goods in the second graphic, this is the page that shows up that has the directions to the store, the phone number to the store hours, all the great things that you want to let a customer know about your local location. When you provide us with your inventory feed, there is a tab that's available on that Google My Business page that says see what's in store. And from within there, a customer can actually search and see all the items that you have available for in store. And when they click on that, it then bounces back over to your site for that transaction to take place. So all these experiences are all about driving people back to your online site. And then finally, on our Google Shopping tab, we've rolled out what we call free local listings. And that means that when I do that search for a Yeti cooler near me, I have that offer that comes up that looks very much like the local inventory ad all the way to the left. But this listing is absolutely 100% free as well. So when you work with us to provide that inventory data, we're going to make it available for free for shoppers looking for products near them for free in a number of ways. And then we also have a great paid advertising opportunity if you want to break out of the pack. So we're really excited about this because if you really think about it writ large, what we're talking about is making an entire geography searchable. And that's pretty exciting. As a shopper, as a retailer, it's a great opportunity for folks to discover great products that are available near them.
Yeah, it's interesting. This example, Chris, I didn't notice until you were presenting it right here that this is a Yeti example.
Yeah.
I spent the 4th of July, morning of 4th of July, running around looking for a Yeti cooler. I went to 2 Dick's and then I ended up at Academy. Finally found one.
And this is what it's all about, right?
Inventory would have saved me a lot of time.
That's right. That's
a
right.
lot of curse words.
And also, in the COVID particular case, right? One thing we've heard from merchants a lot, we want people coming into the store. We don't want them coming into the store unless it is the right time for them to come into the store. So those 2 trips to Dick's where you didn't find what you were looking for, merchants don't want that extra traffic. They want you to come in when you can get what you want and make it available immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking yesterday, like traditionally retail has used click and collect to drive people to the store, and they, kind of set up, the pickup. It's a little bit hard to get to the pickup area. They want you to come into the store and buy other things, and that's part of the strategy, right? I think that's shifting quite a bit now, right? It's not to drive the store, it's for convenience.
Well, and what's really interesting too, to that point, Ben, is that I think the smarter retailers found out pretty quickly that studies demonstrated that when you put the pickup area in the front of the store in a very conveniently located area, that when the shopper comes in, they see it, they feel that they are then able to walk around the store and buy the stuff that they need, right? I know where the pickup is. I'm just going to go grab a few things. On the other hand, I feel like, all right, let me go search for this thing. I'm going to get it, and then I'm going to drag my stuff out of the store. That's a different story. In the times of coronavirus, the folks that went with that make it easy available in the front of the store are really doubly benefiting now, because now shoppers can just duck in, grab that, and get right out.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about fulfillment a little bit. The next kind of topic is around the fulfillment piece, right? So discoverability and having your inventory updated is critically important. You know, to my use case, my personal use case over the weekend. But the next step, the next important thing is the fulfillment of that, right? So once the customers can discover, you know, the ability to provide them with options for executing on that fulfillment. So getting that Yeti cooler into their hands, whether that's click and collect or curbside or even delivery from store. We're starting to see a lot of that as well. So, you know, overall, you know, for those fulfillment modes, you know, one of the critical things that we've seen as being important to success is having all of that on you know, all of those capabilities: curbside, click and collect, delivery from store, have it all be running on the same infrastructure, all of those capabilities, all of that operations, so that there's a lot of visibility, because now we're interacting with the people in the store, right? Someone has to go pick that item. Someone needs to know when that customer is coming in, depending on what the use case is. So there's a real importance of you know, being able to provide the customer with a great seamless experience. I think all of us have kind of noticed how many retail brands have really fallen down on this recently. I personally, I've never done curbside before. I've never gone to pick up my groceries. I've never gone to pick up food. I've never gone to pick up you know, anything really at a store until 3 months ago, right? And so now I'm firsthand experiencing this just out of necessity, and the experience isn't great in a lot of cases. You know, you don't have a lot of visibility into, and you spend a lot of time waiting in parking lots. You don't know who to contact. You know, there's a paper sign outside that says, you know, call when you arrive. So just not a great experience. And I think a lot of this is because so much has been hacked together in the past few months, which is, you know, to be expected, I guess. But I want to talk about each of the different modes, right? Starting with click and collect for local fulfillment. And Chris, you have a wealth of experience here. You know, I'll just start by saying, you know, this is, and we talked about this a little bit the other day, this is kind of a starting point, right? This is the table stakes. Having click and collect, it's pretty easy operationally to set up, right? As long as you know what inventory you have in the store. But the customer is going to come into the store. If they have a problem, they can talk to somebody. They're not waiting out in their car. So this is relatively easy to operationalize. And Chris, I'm sure you see a lot of this and have a lot of experience.
Yeah, I think that it's easy to, it's funny that you say it, it is easy to operationalize, right? It's easy to get a point of sale system to print out a ticket saying this is a pickup order. It's a lot harder to make it a good user experience, right? And we've seen a lot of that. And it is a new buying experience. And so in the early days, we did see people try things like, hey, we're going to stick the pickup area in the back of the store and really make it hard for the customer to find, right? Those kind of things that we learned about. Terrible signage, right? Like not letting folks know when they come into the store where the pickup area is and that what they're supposed to do when they actually get to that pickup area. And I think in the area of food, you know, some of the early QSRs that were really successful in getting that transaction started, they were initially just kind of taking coffee cups and just throwing them all out there with a receipt on top of them. And then, you know, people would go walking up and touching each other's food and all that kind of stuff. So they've done some really simple things, you know, whether it's coming up with little step-tiered landing areas, or even some, you know, electronic means where they're basically handing it out on a one-by-one basis with a call board. They've really found ways to make that experience better, and it's critical because some people are doing it really well. You know, if you go to Walmart, if you go to Target, it's being done really well. It's being done really well. And so you're going to suffer as a retailer in comparison if you are just kind of offering a hacky put together thing. And it's interesting, if you guys actually go into Google My Business, as I referenced earlier, and look at some of your local retailers that offer click and collect and curbside, and you'll see how many of the negative comments are about the bad curbside pickup experience, the bad click and collect experience. People are it's really interesting how many folks are taking the time to comment and let others know that it was a subpar experience. So we're kind of at like phase 2.3 of this thing, phase 2 or 3 of this. There's a customer expectation it's going to be better than paper signs and kind of a hacky model.
Yeah, I've seen it executed really well in the restaurant space with Sweet Green. Used to go there all the time in Manhattan, and they had, little cubbies, right? You come in, you pick up you're told what cubby to come pick it up in. Panera is also doing something similar. So great customer experience. Come in, pick it up, and go.
Exactly.
So, kind of the next evolution after click and collect. I mean, once you have click and collect, we're seeing a lot of retailers move to curbside, right? Especially in this time when people don't necessarily even want to go in and pick something out of a there's some advantages to click and collect, to curbside. It's potentially a little bit less expensive than delivery, right? There's some convenience factor, so the customer doesn't have to come into the store, but there's also some challenges, right? Because now you have someone who's driving up, you need to send someone out to meet them or to drop it into their trunk for contactless curbside. And coordinating that can sometimes lead to a lot of frustration. And we've seen that at a lot of grocers, especially as the volume increases. And we talked about the load of scale really starting to create cracks in the foundation. And you go to a parking lot at a grocery store, and it's chaos, right? People are waiting around for 10, 15 minutes for their groceries to come out, and they're calling. So that's something that we're seeing a lot. And Chris, I know that you're pretty familiar with curbside too, and you see a lot of good examples of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, when one of the big breakthroughs, and actually I have an uncle of mine who was big in this business, in the trucking business, in like the late 80s, early 90s, which was the notion of actually doing GPS tracking of your drivers. So you can manage your logistics chain. You can see when a truck's coming in. You're going to see when a truck's going out. When we talk about curbside, we're really making the customer part of the fulfillment chain, right? Just like Bringg has great tools that help a restaurant or a retailer keep track of their drivers. We also need to be able to keep track of your shoppers as they're coming in for their curbside pickup. And what I think probably the most elegant solution, and I know Bringg has some solutions in this area. I've got a great partner called Radius Networks that has some great solutions in this area. And basically what you do is you rig up the parking lot with sensors so you can really track the user, the shopper, when they come onto the site. So if I place my order, for a delicious chicken sandwich at my favorite restaurant through my app, it actually can tell the local restaurant where I am, how far away I am, and they don't need to start prepping my order or getting my groceries together if I'm all the way across town. On the other hand, when I pull onto the lot, then they know that, all right, Chris is here, let's get his order together. And then instead of going and directing people towards a series of numbered parking spots that are dedicated to curbside, the shopper can really park wherever they want. Because one of the challenges when you have dedicated curbside parking spaces is that you're never going to have the right amount. If you have 20 of them, that means that you have exactly 20 people that are coming to pick up at that exact moment. It seems statistically unlikely that that's going to happen too often. More often, you're going to have 7 people there and 13 prime parking spots being wasted. Or you're going to have 22 people there and they're going to be all confused. So with a solution that allows the user to be tracked through an app, the user can just pull into whatever spot they want, and then the store associate can just bring the order directly out to them, just making it a lot easier for everybody. I think anybody who rents a car, you know that you're used to sharing your flight information so they can make certain your car's ready. To some degree, this is the same kind of ask that we'd be making of the shopper, which is, hey, help us know when you're showing up so that we can be certain your order's ready.
Yeah, we call it arrival awareness detection, right? So knowing when that driver, that customer is going to be arriving and when they are arriving. And we've actually seen some real significant improvements in customer experience and wait times. A grocer that we're working with, I think the average wait time was around 9 or 10 minutes, which is incredible. Think about sitting in your car for 9 or 10 minutes in a parking lot waiting for someone to come out and put groceries in your car. Now it's down to closer to 3 or 4 minutes. So that's a significant customer experience change, right? There's a big difference between sitting in the car with 3 kids for 10 minutes versus 3 minutes. I can attest to that. So let's talk about, so that's curbside. We talked about click and collect a little bit. Kind of in my mind, at least, kind of the next evolution is delivery. So the ultimate convenience, right? Taking that food or that product and being able to fulfill it via either your own fleet or your own employees, maybe, and we're starting to see a lot of that. Actually, I'll talk about that in a second. Or via the growing number of delivery as a service providers, the DoorDashes, the Postmates, the Axle Hires of the world. This is something that we're seeing gaining a lot of traction, especially in the last few months. We've seen it over the past year, but now it's become kind of a critical mass where we're seeing this happen. Yeah, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think you're absolutely right, and I think I don't want to step on your toes, Ben, but I mean, a lot of the challenges that come with managing these multiple fleets, right? Maybe you want to have your own first-person fleet, and have your own drivers that are delivering, but then you also want to have failover, right? So say you don't have drivers available and you want to roll over to a delivery service. I think, and if you are working with multiple delivery services, do you then have 7 tablets behind your counter that your staff has to keep up with and all those kind of things? And I think those are a lot of the operational challenges that come when you are exploring your own delivery service in addition to working with others. And I think an area where Bringg brings a tremendous amount of value.
Yeah, I think, I always tell people that, if they're thinking about delivery, if they have curbside already, they're 90% of the way there, right? Because a lot of the operations, the picking, the packing, the time, like with curbside, that you've already solved for that, right? Now you just need to add a fleet, right? Instead of having a customer come in and know when they're coming into your parking lot and being able to meet them or being able to have them pick something up, now it's just it's either a driver of yours, and there's operational concerns there too, or it's DoorDash, right? Or it's a third party, it's a courier service, right? But you have kind of most of the back end operations of that supply chain in place already. So it's a good starting point to have click and collect and curbside. It's a mixed bag. I would say a good chunk of our customers have their own fleets. I would say most of the customers that Bringg engages with, are prospects and brands that we engage with, that are doing self-delivery have been doing it for a while, right? The idea of spinning up your own fleet is pretty scary. There's a lot of, there's insurance concerns, there's, employee concerns, there's you hire a ton of people. Panera actually went through this a few years ago when we started working with them. They actually came to us initially because they had made the decision, we're going to own this whole supply chain, we're going to hire our own drivers, and we're going to bring that cafe experience into customers' home. That's it. That's our strategy, and that's what they've done, and they've been extremely successful with it. Yeah, they've hired 10 or 15,000 drivers, and like you said, Chris, in some areas where they can't hire enough drivers, or if a driver can't show up that day, or if it's a very busy peak time around lunch, they're able to then dispatch out to the third parties as spillover, just like you mentioned. But you know, Panera and I've heard a couple other brands and frankly, a number of brands have surprised me lately that I never would have thought would be interested in self-delivery. You know, they're starting to realize, well, geez, instead of furloughing employees, you know, maybe we can put them to work going out and making deliveries, right? I never would have crossed a lot of people's minds before, but you know, exceptional times.
You know, and to that point, you know, I've talked to a lot of restaurant folks who their fear is that, you know, they would have to let people go because they didn't have anything for them to do, and then when the crisis passed, they'd have to rebuild their entire and retrain an entire new workforce. So anything that can, even if they break even on it, just to keep the staff engaged, just to keep them on the payrolls, has been a benefit.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I think we actually started talking a little bit about the next topic here, which is strategic considerations, right? We talked about specifics of you know, delivery, curbside, click and collect, but you know, from my perspective, people are moving really fast, which is great, and I love to see that. You know, I've worked for big companies, Chris. I worked at Google, at American Express. I've also worked for a handful of you know, faster, more agile companies. You know, so I appreciate how difficult it is to get things, you know, serious operational changes made at a big organization. But I love what I'm seeing now. People are moving really fast. People are doing things, right? They're not just planning, they're actually executing fast and failing fast, which is music to my ears. I love it. But you know, it's also important to understand as you're going through and making these quick fixes that this bigger picture, this way of operating, right? Local fulfillment, discoverability locally. It's not going to go away, right? So you need to have a bigger picture, move fast, do things now, but you need to you know, have an eye on strategically, kind of long-term, big picture. What is this? What does this all mean for you? What's your strategy?
Indeed. I mean, and I think to that point, one of the big challenges we've seen as people have, as click and collect and curbside and delivery have gone from, you know, a sideline part of the business to like a larger part of the business, is that one of the things that's been exposed is a lot of times the larger companies, there's a real disconnect between the online team and the store team. And it's amazing how frequently there are, for example, the online team gets the revenue credit when someone buys something online, and then it's a pickup in store transaction, but it's the store staff that actually has to allocate the head count to picking the orders, completing the orders, and getting them put together, right? So that's just one example of the disconnect, and it's true across marketing, it's true across operations, it's true across IT. And I think one of the things that some of the really successful folks like Walmart and Target and Best Buy and Home Depot have done really well is kind of breaking down those barriers on a strategic level and recognizing that a sale is a sale is a sale, and you know, differentiating whether or not the transaction was took place on an app or whether it took place on a cash register in the store is really irrelevant. And if those types of silos are getting in the way moving forward, those silos need to be broken down.
Yeah, really good point. Really good point. I think, Chris, this is we're towards the end here of our fireside chat. I think that there might be some questions. Ashley, have any questions come about that we might want to bring up?
Yes, we do. So our first question is to Chris. What does this mean for my shoppers? Will they buy directly through Google, and how can I measure and track this?
Yeah, well, so what's great about this is, you know, just like Google with what we do in general, it's all about getting people onto their destination. And I'm going to date myself a little bit, but I remember when Google first came out, and I was, you know, working with search engine optimization focused primarily on Yahoo, InfoSeek, and a bunch of other companies that don't exist anymore. The focus was all about how do we keep people on our portal as long as possible. And what Google got to was this super clean interface with just a search box. And I remember when Google first came out, the question was like, well, how are they going to make any money? You know, they're not putting any ads up. They're getting people onto where they need to go. And so that model has been extremely effective for Google, because people know when they go to Google, we're going to get you to where you want to be as quickly as we can get you there. And so with the services that I just showed you, the local inventory ads, the organic free listings, the Google My Business, all those transactions take place on your e-com site. We get people there as quickly as we can get them there. And it's all about making it take place within your experience. So just like any other Google ad, we've got eyeballs. We want to make people aware of what you're offering. But when they go to take that action, all the follow-up action is going to take place on your site, which allows you to use your traditional analytics measurement tools, whether it be Google Analytics or Omnichannel or something else. So while it seems kind of like new and groundbreaking, and it is, it's still really search engine optimization at its core, and the results of it are going to be measured very much like search engine ads.
Wonderful. Ben, the next one's for you. What role do you see marketplaces like Instacart and Uber playing?
There's a lot of change going on now, especially with Uber buying Postmates and Grubhub and Just Eat. There's a lot of consolidation going on right now, which is interesting. In some ways, I don't think the role has changed from what it should be, in my perspective, historically, which is, they're a absolutely necessary. I see them as a marketing tool, right? Specifically in the restaurant space, you can't not work with the aggregators in most cases, right? But what I've seen happen, what I think is going to accelerate is, a lot of folks, and we talked about this earlier, a lot of brands becoming too reliant, right? That's their strategy. Their strategy is Instacart or Uber Eats, right? They look to someone else as a turnkey solution. They hand it over to them. Not a big deal. It's 5% of our revenue. Who cares? That mind frame is going to change drastically, I think. It has to, and it is. A lot of the brands that we're working with are coming to us, and their number one strategy is to move quickly towards owned fulfillment. Mm-hmm. So getting orders on their own site, fulfilling it themselves, either a delivery as a service, a courier, 3PL, whatever they need to do, curbside, take care of the whole thing themselves, and move away from the marketplaces as a strategy. They're not going to ever get away, pull themselves down from the marketplaces if they don't have to.
Great. Our next question is, what data will we want to know if the pickup delivery trend will truly continue, and how strong will it be?
I'll throw something out there real quick. I mean, one of the things that is one of the key drivers of buy online, pick up in store, and curbside, at least pre-COVID, was availability, right? Can I get it today? And then it was avoidance of delivery costs, right? So as long as we can deliver, as long as customers feel that they can get it faster and avoid delivery costs, I think we're going to continue to see that grow. Groceries, like in another category, like some hardware categories, there's just some items that you're not going to ship. Grocery is not a good, e-com experience for FedEx, right? You got perishables, you got all those kind of things. So, we're confident that curbside is going to continue to grow in grocery in particular, and in other areas like we got some hardware providers that are more rural oriented, and almost all their e-com transactions are curbside or buy online, pick up in store, because mailing a wheelbarrow across the country doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think you're going to see, it's going to be dependent on vertical, but I don't think we ever go back in the other direction. I think that the share of transactions that are curbside is going to maintain after COVID, and it's only going to grow.
Yeah, I'll add to that just a little bit of a tangent. I mean, I think of my own personal experience and what I would want to know. In my, like, I've never gone through a drive-through at McDonald's until, well, like since like 20 years ago, right? There's no online ordering, whatever. But like I do it all the time now, right? I drive, my kids want fries, I drive by, we're driving by, I don't go in. I have no intention of really going in and playing at the McDonald's playscape with my kids ever again. But I would like to know data-wise, how many people are like me that are trying these new behaviors for the first time, and how likely are they to do it again or to continue doing that? I mean, it's a little bit of a subjective, not such a hard data point, but it'd be interesting to me to start to learn from that.
Yeah. And I think one additional thing is, I think the folks that do a bad job of it are going to see curbside be a fad that's not going to work for them. On the other hand, when you look at Walmart, right, as the exemplar, and what their e-com sales do quarter after quarter, and the big growth in e-com for them has been grocery and curbside. If you do it well, it's going to be an incredibly important growing part of your business. If you do it half-heartedly, it isn't going to be an important part of your business, but those customers that expect that level of service are going to find other options.
And to know that they can get it from you. Interestingly, historically, I've talked to a couple of large retailers, big box retailers, that have, they're just not that interested in doing, or weren't at the time, and things have changed, but weren't that interested in doing delivery from store using third parties. And I said, well, why not? Our customers don't want it. Well, how do you know? Well, we did a pilot in Kansas City, and very low take rate. Well, did you market it? No, it was just a pilot. We just did it at 2 stores, right? So it's like people have to know that they can get it from you, right? It's just, and it needs to be a good experience, not just kind of put it out there and hope that people come and give them a bad experience. So this is where the strategy comes into play. This is critical.
It's so funny you say that, Ben. That's so often the case, right? There's a new emerging technology. People do a lame pilot of it, and then it's like, it didn't work. And it's like, well, why? Of course it didn't work. Why would it work? And I used to be do a lot with beacons in a previous role at Google, and the original rollout of beacons were all these terrible ideas and terrible implementations, and beacons got a bad name. But today beacons do some really incredible things, like the curbside things that we've talked about. They provide a lot of value. It's all about doing it right and providing that great customer experience. Technology is not a magic unto itself.
Yeah.
Except for Google search, that's pretty much that's like magic.
On that note, I think that brings us to the end of our time here. Ashley, do you want to wrap it up?
Yes, it does. Thank you everyone for joining, and to our wonderful speakers, Ben and Chris, thank you so much. It was insightful and a pleasure. We will be sending everyone the recording and look forward to you all joining us at our next event. Thank you very much.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Bye.